Today is July 8th, 2022, and I'm here with World War II veteran Ralph Lybarger. Ralph, were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, I was really drafted. I graduated in 1942, which was right at the beginning of the war, so my classmates were all out of high school into the service.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was the youngest in the class, I was only 17. Everybody else was 18. I had to wait a little while. And then I got a call maybe a year after I graduated
Mm-hmm.
that I was drafted. So I went in by the draft. But after I was at the armory in Toledo, where they took everybody and got them drafted, then they gave us our choice of where we would like to serve. And I said, Marine Corps, you know. And so that's where I went.
Where were you sent for training?
I went to, well, originally I should have gone to Parris Island, but they had some kind of an epidemic at the time, and so I had to do my boot camp in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the West Coast, and so that's where I had all my training in California.
You know which camp or fort you were doing training at?
Did what?
Were you at a camp doing training or a fort?
I went to Marine Corps recruit base in San Diego for my basic training, and then after boot camp, I went to Camp Pendleton for my further training.
How long did you do boot camp training?
Boot camp, I think maybe a few months. I don't remember.
And then when you were sent to Pendleton, how long did you do training there for?
Well, I think that was maybe about 6 months or so for my training, and then I was put on a list to head out and do my thing. So
where were you sent to when you were going to go overseas? Or where were you supposed to go to?
well, I went first to, I got on a ship at San Francisco, and I had to go, we went to Samoa.
Okay.
And then from there, I got shipped up to the Ellis Islands, which is now Tuvalu. They changed the name sometime after World War II to Tuvalu. And then I spent about 2 years at a base on an island called Amatuca.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Funafuti Atoll.
Oh, okay.
There's the big island is Funafuti. There's about 25 or 30 small islands in a group. But the big one is Funafuti. And we had an airfield on Funafuti.
Mm-hmm.
And then just north of Funafuti was our island, and we were a supply outfit. Instead of getting in a fighting outfit, I got somehow into the Quartermaster, which is supply.
Okay.
And so I was not in a fighting outfit on the Marines, which I joined to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm supplying other guys so they can fight.
Okay.
But it didn't make me happy a bit that I got in that type of outfit, but later on I could see that the good Lord was protecting me, and I appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wanted to get in the thick of it, but he didn't put me there, and I was kept out of it. Now, in the end of my boot camp, on record day on the rifle range,
Mm-hmm.
I broke the world record on the rifle by 4 points.
Oh, wow.
See, the World War II, they had the new rifle, the M1,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was of course it was a new record and whatever. But anyway, by me breaking that record, I thought when I got my assignment, I'd probably be a sniper or something, wouldn't you think?
Sharpshooter?
Wouldn't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, I'm a good shot. But anyway, I didn't break it on record day. The day before record day, I broke it by 4 points. Practice doesn't count.
Mm.
So it didn't go on the record that I made it. The next day was record day. That day now I've got to shoot better and break the record, Record day, behind my space, is all the brass of the Marine Corps base. The generals, the colonels, everybody are lined up behind me shooting,
Mm-hmm.
hoping they see a new record. Well, here I am, young kid out of high school, 18. All this military brass behind me, and I can't keep that rifle steady, Yeah, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
All these guys watching me. But I fired and fired and fired. And I ended up making Sharpshooter, but I didn't break the record.
Huh.
And I missed expert by 1 point.
Mm.
If I'd have made one more point, I'd have made expert.
Oh, wow.
Well, expert pays $5 a month on your pay. Sharpshooter pays $3. Well, here, we was making $21 a month. $5 is 25%. I get a 25% raise if I make one more point. But I only ended up with Sharpshooter, and I got about 15%, which was still good. Making, instead of 21, I was making about $24, and not spending any of it, so no place to spend it.
I know you were assigned to a quartermaster, but were you in a regiment and a division of it?
Well, no.
Okay.
We were separate. The divisions were in what they called line companies.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 1st Marine Division,
Mm-hmm.
2nd Marine Division. Now, I was in what they called the 6th Base Depot. Different type of service.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though I was a sharpshooter, never fired a shot. All the time I was overseas. I had the rifle. I had all the ammunition. But when I got discharged, I gave them back the rifle and the belt full of ammunition they gave me to start with, just like when they gave it to me.
Did you just stay on that island for the rest of the war, or did you go to any other islands?
I started out going to Samoa, and from there, then I got shipped up to Amatuga in the Ellis Islands, and I stayed there for the duration of my time overseas until the war moved on past us far enough that we went back then to Honolulu. Went back to Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent another year or so in Hawaii until the war was over, and then came home.
So how did you feel about the bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, I was thrilled. I mean, it was a bad thing for the Japanese. I mean, it got rid of a lot of people, and it was a real terrible bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too bad it had to happen, but it did stop the war. That's the main thing. It stopped it.
Did you ever hear about any talks about you helping out with the invasion of Japan at all, or no?
No.
But were you nervous for people who would go into Japan if they had the invasion?
Well, I thought about the consequences of having to go through that. But since they had that new bomb, it made a short end of the war right then. I mean, you almost knew after the second one that it wasn't going to last very long. I mean, it was going to be over real quick.
Yeah.
Which it was. And we'll hope we never have to see it again, but you never know.
Well, what was your rank?
I was PFC.
Okay.
I could have been probably at least a staff sergeant or above under the way things were going at that time. They made a whole bunch of promotions all at once on our island. I mean, in 3 or 4 days, you might have 2 or 3 ranks more. I mean, bing, bing, bing. But at the time, well, almost at the time that happened, I got into problems with the military and got thrown in the brig, which demoted me. They took my one stripe away. But had I not done that, I think I would have been at least a staff sergeant when I got discharged. But anyway, my little case of trouble cost me, I think, at least 3 ranks promotion.
Where were you when Pearl Harbor happened?
Well, when Pearl Harbor happened, I was in high school yet. See, that was 41.
Yes.
I was a senior at Riley High School.
Okay. How did you feel about it?
I graduated in 1942.
Okay. How did you feel about the Japanese attacking?
About the what?
The Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor.
Well, I thought that was a cowardly thing. They were talking about peace terms and things at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then to pull a sneaky trick like they did, hey, I think they got everything they deserved.
Did you bring home any like souvenirs at all?
I didn't get any souvenirs of any kind.
Do you have any good stories you can tell me? I think your daughter mentioned something about a jet fuel party or something, or I don't know what it was. Some kind of funny story.
Oh, I got a lot of Marine tales.
Okay.
Like most Marines will tell you battle stories.
Yeah.
Well, all of my war stories are nothing in the battle end. It's funny things that happened to me.
All right.
And so I think about my favorite story would be my bean story.
I think she mentioned that.
No, anyway, that's a big long story. But when I got on the island, to start with now, I got on the island of Amatuca. One of my first jobs, I was only there a day or so, one of my first jobs was to help load a trailer full of tents. Everybody had been living in tents, and now they have regular house quarters for them.
Mm-hmm.
So no more tents.
Okay.
We're shipping them out. And so one of my first jobs I got on the island was help load up that big trailer with all these tents. Now they were about, the package was probably 3.5 foot square,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 1.5 foot or so high. Man, pretty heavy. That's all canvas. And so they're having us 2 at a time go up and get a tent. I get one corner of it and the other corner, and the guy on the other side gets 2 corners, and then we sidestep down a little path to where the trailer was. And it was awkward. And so I got my first one, and I went back to the trailer then to get another one. And I says to the other fellow that was working with me, I said, "Get back." And I told the guys to put one on my back. I'll carry it myself. Which would be easier. And so the fellas at the pile of tents, I just backed up to them. They put one up on my back. I grabbed it, walked it right over to the big trailer, and easy. Well, the colonel was standing there. He saw that.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Who is that little guy?" Made an impression on him right away. And the fella says his name is Lybarger. "Oh, he's a little German, huh?" Well, it turns out the colonel was German. His name was Kramer.
Hmm.
Colonel Mercedes Kramer.
Hmm.
As German as you can get, you know. From then on, I was the colonel's buddy. The top man of the whole island. He took me under his wing right there.
Oh, wow, that is very interesting.
Which is not military, you know.
Yeah.
Colonels don't associate with PFCs. But anyway, from then on I was in good with the colonel. And everything went along fine.
Huh.
And one day, we always had a movie every night, you know. So, after the movie, we always had a little snack. Of course, we were an outfit that supplied everything. We had food stacked to the tops of the palm trees, all kinds of stuff, you know, for everything. So, we had snacks every night. Maybe we'd open a can of cherries, can of peaches, whatever, you know, something to snack on. And they run out. And they said, hey, he said, we got to have something to snack on. Whose turn is it to get some? I said, well, my turn. And we'd go out and make what we call a midnight requisition. Go out and swipe something off of the stockpile that we got. And I said, well, what would you guys like to have? And they said, well, I don't know. I says, I know right where the pork and beans are at. I'll go get a can of cold pork and beans, and that tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, that sounds good. So I went out, and I knew right where the pork and beans was, and there was a stack about just above my head. I just reach up and get that last. Of course, it was way up normally, but on the corner was this one just at the where I could reach it.
Mm-hmm.
And I slid that off. Right around the corner is the guard. Well, the guard caught me
Oh, no.
swiping that bunch of beans. So he took me into the colonel. Well, I got court-martialed. And at the court-martial, the colonel says, well, he says, I'm going to tell you a story. He says, my dad was a bird hunter. And he had this bird dog that started bringing back rabbits. He says, if you know anything about hunting, you know that a bird hunter don't want his dog getting rabbits. So he says, Dad took that rabbit, tied it up around the dog's neck, and he just left it there. He says, it got pretty bad, he said, you know. Teach that dog a lesson. You don't bring back rabbits. He says, well, so you know what I'm going to do with you? And I said, well, sounds like you're going to make me a necklace out of those beans, and I'm going to wear a bean necklace. No, he says, you're going to get them all right. I'm going to put you on reduced rations. And he says, you're going to eat 2 cans of beans a day for 15 days. You know, he says, you 24 in the case that I swiped off of the pile. He said, we'll put 6 more in there. He said, now if you don't eat the whole can, I'm going to put 2 more cans in there. Well, I got to thinking, you know, that pile could get bigger and bigger if I don't eat them. But I think I can handle it. So I go to the Brig. In the first few days, no problem. But 3 or 4 days later, I couldn't eat a can of beans. Well, I was lucky. It was rainy season, and I'm sitting there in what they called the Brig. It was just a spot down in the coral on it with a cot where you could sit on, and that was it. Out in the open in the weather and everything, but I did have a poncho, so I didn't get wet. And I couldn't eat all those beans, so I called the guard that I had to go to the bathroom, and he'd take me down, and we just go in the ocean and let the surf wash it out, And I'd take that can of beans under my poncho, and then I'd dump it out and feed it to the crabs and that, and then I'd go back and I'd give him an empty can. And so that went on till my bean pile was done, and I managed to get by real good that way. And the thing was, I didn't have a BM because I was getting built up with a plug of beans. I was all plugged up, no getting rid of those old beans, But I couldn't go to the doctor because I'd been calling for a restroom every day. They think I'm okay. But I went in on the 12th day of December. Well, my 15 days is up 2 days after Christmas. And so Christmas Day, I'm sitting there thinking about my beans, and the guard says, "I feel sorry for you. You can't have Christmas dinner." He said, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get you a Christmas dinner." I said, "That sounds great." So he went and got me a big tray of Christmas dinner, and I polished that off. Well, when I did, it wasn't very long, and I could feel it pushing. And oh boy, I ought to go now. And I got rid of my bean plug that had been there for all this time, which it worked out real good. And so a couple of days later, then I finished up my 15 days. I got out of the Brig, and I went to mess hall that evening. And I'm walking down the mess hall, and now the officers ate in the same building we did, but over on the side by themselves, So I'm coming down the chow line, and I look over there at the officers section, and there's a colonel and all of them looking at me and just grinning and smiling, and what's the matter? What's going on? I said, "Oh, I bet I know what it is. I bet beans is on the menu for tonight, especially for me." So I get up to the beginning of the chow line, and I looked, and the first big tub is beans. And I walked up there, got my tray, and I stood in front of that big tub full of beans there, and I looked over at the colonel, and they're just looking at me and smiling and grinning and carrying on, and I thought, I said, "I'll show him." I reached that spoon into the beans, and I got a big spoonful And I just looked at him and I slapped it on my plate, you know. And I kept looking at him and I reached over and I got another one. I put in 2. I said, and I might as well go 3. I took the 3rd one, slapped it on there, tilted it so he could see the big pile of beans. Then I went on about the line and I finished my meal. Gagged on every bite, but I made it. Got them all done. So that was my bean story.
Wow, that's really good.
Phillips pork and beans is what they were. And to this day, if I go to a reunion and somebody used Phillips pork and beans to make their dish, I can tell it. I can tell Phillips pork, of course they're good. I still like them. I eat them if I find them. But that's my bean story. That's the kind of stories that I have to tell because I didn't fight, you know.
Yeah. So it's still good. I like that.
And then at the time, I was in the brig. We didn't have a brig. All it was just open space, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here I am. I call myself the Colonel's right-hand man, you know. He wanted a brig built. He gave me the job of building the brig. Now this was before I ate the beans.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I got the job of building that brig. And I used the prisoners that were in the brig at the time. They were the ones that built it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in charge of it. So I built this nasty old brig out in right in the open coral. We don't have a beach, a sandy beach or nothing, it's all coral. And so I built this brig like railroad ties on the corners, and it had a little partition in each corner, big enough for a man to put a cot and spend the evening here, you know, whatever. But it was a rough old thing. And when we got the brig finished, the fellas that were building it, their time in the brig was over.
Mm-hmm.
So they got out. Nobody got to be in the brig until I got the beans. I'm the first guy that goes in that brig. I built it, I initiated it by going in there for 15 days.
Wow.
But anyhow, I was the first occupant. But that's the kind of stories that I have to tell.
Wow.
And the colonel had 2 houseboys.
Mm-hmm.
One named Bill and one named Tom. And Bill, he didn't have a care in the world. He was a happy-go-lucky guy, always wanting to play jokes on guys and things like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom, the other one, he was more serious. He was interested in what was going on in the States. So he'd come down and talk to me, you know, quite often about my life in the States and how things was, and he was interested in all that kind of stuff. But we got along real good. I spent a lot of time with the colonel's houseboys, and there's all kinds of different things that went on that it's just like there's an eel that was living in the coral. At low tide, we'd go out there and we could catch those eels. And one of the guys found out that you weren't supposed to eat those. If you ate them, you cooked up one of those eels, it would do something to your nervous system and you'd get the shakes and the jerks and whatever. I mean, it'd give you some reactions. And so one of the wise guys, hey, I'm going to try that. So he tried it. He got the shakes and the jerks and everything, and he went to the medical department, and boy, they didn't have any idea what it was. Ship him home right now. Put him on a plane and took him back to the States. Some of the other fellows knew what happened, and we'll do that too. So they did. And 2 or 3 more guys got sent home. Until the medic outfit got to talking to some of the native guys, and they say, oh, nothing wrong with him really. He just ate some of those eels. It'll be over in a day or 2. And so then that didn't work getting you home anymore. From then on, you just had to stay there a couple of days until you got over it, and then they'd put you back to work, you know. But no, it was quite a life. And then right across the road from my shop was the wharf where they unloaded a big raft that they used to unload ships. Couldn't get a ship to shore, so you had to unload out there in the lagoon onto this raft and then bring it up to this dock and unload it to take it in and store it. And so I'd go fishing all the time. I had nothing else to do. And so I sent home and had Dad send me a big box of different things for fishing, and then I'd spend a lot of my time just fishing. So really, I always figured that my time in the service was more like a 3-year paid vacation in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
Because when they got rid of the tents, now that was half of my work. I went into what they called, my job was and training was shoe and textile. Shoe repair. I was a shoe repairman. Now, who ever heard of a Marine being a shoe repairman? But that's what they put me in. And textile, which I was to do the tents. Well, they done away with all the tents. Half of my work is gone. And then the colonel come down to see me one day, which he spent a lot of time just coming down, jabbering with me, you know, visit. And I was there one day, and the colonel was there when the black guys were coming in. And after they left, he says, "Do you have to do their shoes too?" Well, I said, "Yeah, I do all of them, whatever." He says, "That ain't right." Of course, it was still segregated back then. So the next thing that happened was he found some black fellas that had worked in the shoe part. Now he gave these guys the job of fixing the black guys' shoes, and took away more of my work.
Mm.
So I would work maybe 2 or 3 days on the white guys' shoes, and then the next 2 or 3 days the black guys would take over the shop. I didn't have nothing to do. I'd go fishing. You know, that's a tough life. You have to go fishing all the time. But that was what it was. And like I say, I always felt guilty that I wasn't doing what I thought was my part.
Yeah.
But all the time, the good Lord was protecting me, and I didn't have brains enough to see it.
Yeah.
Instead of me being out there as a sniper and carrying on these battles and everything, he kept me out of that.
That's good. He protected you.
So,
Well, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Ralph, for taking the time to do this for me.
well, I'm glad to tell you my experiences, and